Wait.
Hello. Hello, everybody. So welcome back to Focused at 40. I am Genesis Etienne.
And I am Kathy Goodall, and we're happy to be with you again this week.
Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us. We are really excited this week. We know that it is a special time of the year. Valentine's Day is around the corner. And so we are really excited about talking today about the things that make this day so special. And we are talking about love and affection. And what is love? How do we define it? And how do we do it? How do we do love? Because we can talk about feeling love, but I believe that love is a verb, So I'm curious, Catherine, about what is your definition? How do we talk about love here?
So for me, I think I have found in my experience that the purest definition of love comes from what God says love is. And when you think about really love in its natural form, in its essence, a healthy love, it's exactly what God says. He says love is patient, love is kind, it doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it's not proud, it doesn't dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in truth. It protects, it always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. And I think if we look at any relationship at all, friendships, family relationships, intimate partner relationships, if we think about love in its purest form, then I think that's the most ideal definition of what love should be, a healthy love should be.
Wow. But I mean, that's a beautiful definition. I don't know that we understand love that way, right? I mean, a love that doesn't boast, and a love that doesn't have an ego. Unfortunately, I feel like while God wants us to have this type of love, how can we actually do that, right? How do we practice having that type of love? I don't know. I feel like a lot of it has to do with loving yourself enough as well, because when you love yourself, you don't have to project your things onto your partner, right?
Yeah, and I would challenge all of us to think about love, self-love from this same definition. Are we patient with ourselves? How do we talk to ourselves?
Are we
kind to ourselves? Exactly, and I think, like you said, self-love is the most important part of being able to express love. Because if we don't own who we are and know who we are, there's no way that we can effectively love somebody else.
Agreed. I think that the definition of love changes. I would love for it to stay the biblical definition, right? But love is objective. And I think that people are going to infuse into love and infuse into relationships how they understand love. You know what I mean? And how we learn love comes from many different places, came from our parents, the way that we were raised, past experiences. And so I'm curious as to how does your definition of love, or how you love, and how the person that you're with, right? How do those two definitions come together to create love?
Yeah, and Gary Chapman has a book called The 5 Love Languages, right? And for those of you that haven't read it, I definitely tell you it's a great book to read.
It will change your life.
Yeah, it helped me to understand my family relationships and how we should give and receive love to each other, my friendships. And I think even in a relationship, an intimate relationship, understanding how you receive love and how you give love is important. Because even if, in essence, we're in a loving relationship, if you're not loving me the way that I receive it, or I'm not giving you love the way that you receive it, there's going to be a disconnect. So you talk about our relationships and our experiences shaping the way that we love. And I think it's very true. I think you and I are both sociologists, right? So we appreciate that society impacts the way that we think, the way that we act. But I think it's also important that we analyze the relationships and the experiences that we've had and pull what the good parts of love that we want to carry on. I was doing a questionnaire last week that made you look at a relationship holistically, and it asked about your family and how your family expresses affection or love or emotion, and
Oh,
what parts
okay.
of, yeah, so you know what you've learned and how you've learned it. Is that the way that you want to express love? Is that the way that you receive love? And what are the things that you want to change, which I think is one of the most important things that I want people to take away. Because we've learned something doesn't mean that we have to perpetuate it. We can actually actively change the way that we love, and the way that we receive love.
I
So
agree.
because something has been a part of our experience, I think stopping to acknowledge what those experiences were, pull the good from the experiences, and learn from the bad in those experiences so that we can reshape what we want love to look like.
I couldn't agree more. I think that love is something that we can play with, right? It's something that changes all the time. I know that I didn't learn affection from home, right? Because I think that our parents, cultural things, women, my mother is a very strong, very resilient, and so she wasn't a cold person growing up, but she was definitely
Not
serious. And
warm and fuzzy.
she was
Like,
not warm and fuzzy. I got a lot more hugs and kisses from my dad.
yeah.
But I definitely learned watching them two, right? Not necessarily with me, but them two, their relationship. What I did want affection and love to look like, they were always there for one another. They communicated really, really well. They were incredibly affectionate and intimate with one another. My parents enjoyed each other, and that I think showed me what I would like. I also took from my mother that she wasn't as warm and fuzzy. And so I am very much that way, Interestingly, though, with my children, but not as much in relationships, right? With my kids, I am a ball of love. Like I am just a giant ball of just mush. I am mashed potatoes. But yet with men, and again, ego, boasting, right? Those are things that I'm working with because I think that I have a lot of ego when it comes to love, and it could be past relationships.
Yeah.
It could be protective factors why I feel that way.
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm working on because I know that in
Yeah.
order for me to receive and to give the love that I want, I have to be able to put those things down, and learn from past relationships, past mistakes, because I do want to find that amazing love. I do want to feel that love. I do want to have that kind and patient love. I do want that. But again, it's funny if people are not on the same love page, you're not gonna get that. So it's a conversation I think that's always got to be having. That we constantly have to be having.
Yeah, and a
With
big
each other.
part of love is communication. A big part of any relationship, whether a friendship or any kind of relationship, is communication. So we will never be able to understand what each other, we were talking about this before we started, before we went live, and I was saying to you that my therapist said, don't assume. Right? And from when we're children, they tell you, don't assume, because when you assume, you make an ass of you and me. And so, and so don't assume that because you love a certain way, the other person loves a certain way or thinks a certain way. And sometimes all it is for us to communicate with each other what we want. Don't think that that person can guess. I have a friend who is married, right? And she got really upset when her husband didn't make much ado of her birthday. And I'm like, that's not who you married. That's not, you married the man that you need to say, I want to do X or Y for my birthday, and he will move mountains for you. He's not the one that's going to go and plan it, because you are also a very picky woman. And next thing, he goes and plans something and you don't like it and you won't appreciate it. And so you knew the man that you married. I knew the man that you married. So you knew the man that you married.
It goes back to those love languages though, right?
Yep.
I mean, maybe the way that he expresses love is not the way that she receives it, It's so interesting because I remember reading a quote that said, learning your partner's trauma is a love language.
Wow.
It's a love language, right? Because you got to be able to empathize and to get to where they're at, right? If somebody grew up in a home where there was not a lot of love, where there was not a lot of affection, if you grew up in a house with one parent, if you grew up in an abusive house,
Yeah.
All of those things influence how we learn to love, how we receive love, how we give it, if we even feel that we're worthy of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important. I mean, yes, the communication, because we're constantly having to communicate, but a lot of people don't even know that they're traumatized. You know,
Yes.
a lot of people don't know, you know, a lot of people, if you grew up in a house where you did not see parents who were interacting and loving and kind with one another, you may not know how to do that. You know, it may feel very foreign to you. And your partner, if your partner doesn't know that, or if your partner doesn't know your history, it's very hard to see eye to eye, you know? So I think it's really important when you're learning somebody, to ask about those things, especially if it's a relationship that you want to work in, a relationship that you want to, you know, what was love like? How did you see love in your home? How did you learn to love? You know,
Yeah.
and that's going to impact the way you guys share, you know, share in love, share in your lives together. Because if we don't have the same definition of it, we do not know how to behave with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we talked about love languages quite a bit, and I think for people that have never heard of love languages before, it would be good to share. The 5 love languages that Gary Chapman refers to are acts of service, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and words of affirmation.
Do you
And
know your
some
top?
people,
Do you know your top?
so it's funny because it has changed over time. And how I give love is very different from how I receive love. And I think that that is interesting as well.
That
Right.
is
So for
very
me,
interesting.
yeah. So for me, acts of service is definitely how I give love.
Yes.
You know,
That is so funny because I knew that's how you, but yet it's not how you receive it because you don't like to get help. That's
that's
so
right. Isn't
interesting
that
to me.
crazy?
That is so
Yeah.
interesting to me.
I think the way that I receive love is quality time and words of affirmation.
Yeah.
I think that's how I receive it. What about you, Jane?
I receive it. Definitely my top is words of affirmation. I want to know all the time. I want you to tell me all the time, baby, I love you. Girl, you look so good. Girl, that booty looking right. Like I like to hear it, you know.
Yeah.
Physical touch is also really important to me. And
Mm-hmm.
again, right? Like, you know, and going back to my parents, Mom, I'm sorry that I'm putting all your biz on the streets out here. But like my mom and my dad couldn't keep their hands off each other. You know what I mean? They just were really into one another. And so interestingly, I went into my marriage hoping that it would have been that way, right? That we couldn't keep our hands off of each other, that we were going to have this like passionate, steamy thing all the time. And it was not that way. And it's because he doesn't give love the same way that I receive it. And it was that same thing, you know? But definitely words of affirmation, definitely physical touch, quality time. I think it's really important.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, let it be known that we are all a little bit of all of these things,
Yeah.
right? Everybody can have their main love language, but most people like a gift, or most people
Yeah.
need quality
All
time
of
or
the
acts of
above.
service. You know, it's so funny because I feel like now, while I love words of affirmation and physical touch, oh my God, as an adult, acts of service are so important. You know, like come for everybody who for everybody who chimed in on the damn alarm system that was chiming, you know, I needed a guy to come and like fix that for me, you know. So acts of service are like really important at this stage of my life, you know.
Mhm.
But so is everything else, the quality time, you know. So I think your love language changes over time.
Yeah.
I give also. I think I also give the way that I receive.
Receive. Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
I think I'm constantly encouraging and telling you you're so
Yeah.
handsome and I'm so proud of you, and you know
Yeah.
that kind of thing. The physical touch, though, again, that ego part, right? I don't want to get too if I'm not invited in that space, you know.
You
And
know,
so if
I love
somebody,
that you talked about being invited in that space because I think for me, my experience has always been I've not been an affectionate person because the one time I tried to show affection, it scarred me for life when the person rejected me.
right,
And I do not do
right,
well with rejection. And so um being able to, we talked about forgiveness a couple of episodes ago, and you know that release of everybody is not like that person, that release of being open to receiving affection and being comfortable enough to give it is something that I got to learn in my 30s, moving now into my 40s where I believe I fully embrace it. Right. I think, you know, transitioning from my 20s to my 30s and learning all of the things that I don't want in a relationship,
Oh my
helped
God.
me to, my 30s was the release, you know, and I think my 40s now is helping me to embrace what I do want. So now I'm clear on what I don't want. Now I'm clear on what love, what healthy love looks like. And so now I found that in the last couple of years, I've made the shift of trying to protect that space and embrace that healthy love.
Let me tell you something. I think embracing love is something that takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, we have got all of these schemas, okay? We have got all of these self-imposed ideas about ourselves.
Mhm.
And allowing yourself to be loved is it's a very healthy, but it's a very vulnerable thing, you
Yeah.
know? And again, I feel like trauma, past relationships, you know, I remember in my 20s, I felt like I was so kind of naive about love, right? I felt like I gave it so freely. And then in my 30s, you know, of course, 100 things happened. But after that, after I was divorced, I felt like very like, nope, you know, I can't give it right now. I don't have it to give. I do not have it to give, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas now I definitely feel like I'm in a different place.
But
But
I think we need to shift that mindset though, Jen, because it's not that you didn't have it to give, you had it to give to yourself.
you know what though? Again, trauma, right? Not that I have
Yeah.
this traumatic thing, but you know, if you're in a relationship that is not giving what you need for it to give, and you do that long enough, you kind of start going without.
Yeah.
So when you start going without for a long enough period of time, you believe that you don't maybe need it anymore. You know,
Or
you
you don't
think
deserve it
or
anymore.
that you don't deserve it anymore, you know, or that the relationship is past that, right? We're in a different place now. People mistake love with lust and with affection, you know, and love
And with codependence.
and with codependency. Absolutely, you know, and those are all very different things, and those are all very different manifestations, you know. But you know, receiving love is, you know, it's so funny. I feel like it's ever changing. I feel
Yeah.
like it's ever changing because we're going to receive love from different ways from different people, you know?
Okay.
And it's a matter of us being able to accept it, you know? And that's where the self-love part comes in more than anything, I feel like. Because if you're not loving on yourself, how do you accept love from somebody else?
Yeah.
I went on a date, you know, a few weeks ago, and I made, you know, a nice compliment to the gentleman, and he had such a hard time accepting it. Yeah, he had a really hard time. And I said, is it that you don't think that you're handsome? And he's like, I mean, not really, you know? And so I was like, really? Oh my God, you're like fine, boy, you so fine, right? But if he doesn't believe it, you know, he doesn't
Nothing
even,
that you can say. Yeah.
exactly, you know? So uh, it's a
So
work in progress.
yeah. So let's shift to something a little bit lighter. Valentine's Day is coming up. Do you celebrate Valentine's Day normally?
You know what? I have not had a Valentine for many years, but I still look. I've got kisses on
What?
my finger. I've got
Yeah.
Valentine's Day. Yes, because I celebrate love. I don't necessarily celebrate, you know, Valentine's Day with Cupid and the pink and the. If I have a boyfriend or a man and we celebrate it, that's awesome. But I love love. I love love. I'm a marriage and family therapist. Like I love love. I love
Yeah.
to see it. I love the dance. I have just been like giddy with you over the last, you know, few months because I love to see people in love. I love to see people in love. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've
Um,
never been one to I think I don't generally get excited about things like Valentine's Day. Even my birthday, I don't get too excited about. And so for me, I like a good Valentine's Day for me is quiet time at home with the person that I love, not fanfare and gifts and excitement.
yeah, I mean, with if and when I celebrate Valentine's Day again, it will probably be at home, but there will be sex too because I think because I'm sorry, you know, that is a big part of it as well. And I'm sorry, guys. It's healthy and it's beautiful and get you some. You know what I mean? I hope you get plenty. I hope you get plenty this year. I really hope of love. I hope you get plenty of love.
Plenty of love.
I love love and I love to celebrate it. I mean,
Lord.
even in my house, sometimes I'll put up pink candles and I'll put, you know, to decorate and my kids will, you know, they'll write me a Valentine's Day card. Um, So yeah, I think I love to celebrate it. But I'm a celebrator. I'm going to celebrate everything. What are we
Yes.
celebrating? Easter, Leprechaun Day, whatever, you know? But yeah, I'm excited about it this year. I'm excited. I got my red silk sheets that I'm going to put on my bed and got my nails done. And are
You're
you
all
excited?
ready for
Because this year you
B-Day.
have like a little boo thing to do Valentine's Day with. Are you?
Listen, moving right along. So, Jane, I mean, we talked a lot about different aspects of love, different things that are important about love, but what do you think the key takeaway is that you'd want people to leave with today?
I think that the main thing is that we're constantly redefining how we do love. And we didn't talk about that actually, about love being a verb,
Yes.
guys, because you can feel the most in your heart. You can feel it in your soul for somebody. You can feel it in your soul. But if that does not come out of you, that person is not going to know. So love is an action. It is an action. It is a doing. It
The
is a
way we
constant
speak, the way we
doing.
treat each other.
It is a constant doing. It is a constantly reevaluating what works now. Again, what worked for me then doesn't work for me now, you
Yeah.
know? So definitely knowing your love language, right? Get the book. Get the book, guys. Read it. If you don't want to get the book, you can always go online. You can read more about the love
Google,
languages, the
get the
5 love
cliff notes.
languages. Yeah, because you know what? Knowing how somebody receives love makes it so much easier to love them.
There's even a quiz on finding your love language. So you can just Google it online, 5 love languages, and the quiz will come up for you to take the quiz. Maybe you don't know what your love language is. So look for the quiz and check it out. Maybe we'll drop it in the comments below so that you guys
Oh,
can
that
have
would be
access
great.
to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, knowing your love language, learning your partner's love language, celebrating one another. And you guys, I want you to think about, like, what does love mean to you out there in the world? What does love mean? How do you guys do love every day? And it's not just the love of a partner. I mean, we're talking about that mostly because it's Valentine's Day and we're kind of in that spirit, but we are loving on people all day, on our children, on our families, on our friends. How do you, because the love languages are not just for your partner, right? Your children, if you have a kid who doesn't like to be touched too much, being on top of them all the time is not comfortable, But if they need, if they would prefer that you help them more with homework or something, that's how you're gonna, so you're constantly having to check and see how the person that you're loving on receives that. And you can work with that. Again, I think it makes loving somebody much easier when you already know how to do it.
Yeah.
These are clues, I think. So.
Yeah. And for me, I think the takeaway would be love yourself first. So
Big
that,
time.
yeah, learn to love yourself first so that you can actually pour out love to somebody else or to other people
And
in a
receive it.
meaningful way.
And receive it, because if you don't love yourself, you don't know how to receive it. Sometimes you don't know how to receive it, or you don't feel like you're worthy of it. You know what I mean? So working on love of self is as important as working on the love of others,
Yeah, and like Jen said, love is a verb. So actively love yourself. Love yourself with physical care. Love yourself with what you feed yourself mentally. Love yourself through the people that you surround yourself with. It's a verb. So actively love yourself in meaningful ways so that you can then receive love and give love.
I love that. I love that.
But thanks, guys, for joining us for another week of Focused at
Focus that
40.
voice.
We'll see you again next week. Bye.